of Peter Talks Vinyl. I'm talking about some of my favorite records. I started to go back and really pick out things I wanted to talk about, and maybe not always be the most obvious record from a band's or a musician's catalog. In this case, I'm going to talk about Rush's Fly By Night. Now, first thing I want to say, before you Rush fans come to me and start yelling and online saying, you're not talking about Hemispheres, how dare you? What about A Farewell to Kings? What about Moving Pictures? Listen, those are all genius records. I'm a Rush fanatic. I love those albums, and I could talk about those for a long time as well. However, I hear a lot of people talking about those records, so I don't really need to kind of understate or underline how great those albums are and talk about why they're classics. But I do want to talk about a record that I think doesn't get as much love as it should. I find Rush heads do talk about it, but kind of in passing, and we start talking about Rush as we know it around 2112 in particular. But I love Fly By Night. I was actually introduced to Rush. I'd heard songs as a kid on the radio, but didn't really have too many friends that were older that knew about Rush. They just knew about a song or two. And their albums were really expensive because they were really popular when I started getting into them around the time of Moving Pictures. So I couldn't afford all those new records. So I'd go into my favorite used record stores and look for Rush. And lo and behold, my first day looking, I found Fly By Night for $1.99. I was like, I'll do it. Let's make it happen. So this record holds some sentimental value to me, but I was just blown away right away. This is a kind of interesting period where Rush is kind of somewhere in between their prog future and their roots, and just coming off of the kind of Led Zeppelin, crazy, over the top, early 70s hard rock, big hard rock vibe. So I love this album. It's really magical, and it's got just really great stuff. I couldn't believe the drumming on it. I couldn't believe the singing and the playing. It was just out of control. And for those of you that don't know, this is Neil Peart's first album with Rush. So a lot of people consider this the first true Rush album, although this is their second album. Right away, it starts off with Anthem, which is a killer song. Best I Can is great. A lot of it is like 70s hard rock, but I kind of say it's like on steroids, because there's just anytime there's a break, you're hearing Neil Peart just go nuts on the toms, or playing and doing these fills are just ridiculous. And Geddy Lee's voice at this point is on helium stun. It's set to stun, with the exception of maybe Rivendell, which is the quiet, pretty song on this, and a little bit on the last track, In the End, which is a total epic, great rocker. For the most part, he's just on helium vibe and letting you know what's going on. There's actually a really cool video for Fly By Night, the first song on the second track, where you can see Rush resplendent in their 70s glory, and it's wonderful. It's a great song. It was kind of like a sorta hit in Canada, but I found after I bought this album and I was listening to it, and I kind of went crazy and started buying all these Rush albums, that a lot of my friends and even older people that were into hard rock didn't know early Rush records. So I felt like I was on my own, and it was really exciting for me once I hit high school and met Rush fans that really embraced this album. This is actually an early copy. This is a very early Mercury Records copy, which has the cool inner sleeve with handwritten lyrics, which is awesome. And apparently this is harder to find nowadays, but it's super cool. I treasure this record. It was the best $2 I ever spent at the time. Like I said, yes, it's not as developed as later Rush and the ultra proggy stuff. Of course, it's not going to match up in some ways to the majesty of things like Permanent Waves or Moving Pictures, or certainly the elegance of Signals. But this record really rocks. So if you're into harder rock stuff and maybe don't want to hear Rush being ultra proggy all the time, this might be a cool record for you to check out. And if you are an ultra prog head and you love that, this is cool because you have the early stages of that. And the first, Vitor and the Snow Dog is the first Rush epic ever to make it to record. So it's cool to kind of hear where they're going to kind of eventually go for 2112 and following records. Anyway, terrific album, means a lot to me. And by the way, super cool cover, right? Awesome cover, right? So Rush, Fly By Night, get it. 74, by the way, 1974. So we're talking 50-year-old record. Jeez.